I graduated college at 23 with a computer programming degree in my pocket. Unlike most of my classmates, who were scrambling to find jobs, sending out resumes like desperate SOS signals, I'd locked mine down in my third year. CodeStream Solutions, a mid-sized software company with a glass-walled office downtown, had offered me a spot after a summer internship. I'd spent those months debugging code in a cubicle that smelled like burnt coffee, and they liked my work enough to promise me a desk of my own. The salary wasn't life-changing, but it was pretty decent, enough that I could have rented a one-bedroom apartment with a view of something other than a parking lot. I'd spent nights imagining it. My own space, no one else's mess, just me and my laptop. But that's not how it worked out. I stood there at graduation, cap tassel swinging in my face, feeling a quiet pride I didn't dare voice out loud. My parents, Linda and Tom, were in the crowd, clapping like I'd just invented the internet. They'd put me through school. Well, mostly. Loans covered the rest, but they'd scraped by to help with textbooks and dorm fees. I owed them, didn't I? That's what I told myself when the job offer came, when I pictured moving out and starting fresh. I could have done it, should have. Instead, I went home that night to my old bedroom, the one with the chipped paint and the twin bed I'd outgrown years ago, and unpacked my diploma into a drawer. Freedom could wait, I thought. Turns out, it'd have to wait a lot longer than I planned. A few weeks after graduation, I sat at our dining table, the one with the wobbly leg Tom kept meaning to fix. Linda set down a plate of meatloaf, the edges a little too crispy, and smiled at me like she had something to say. She did. "Hazel, we were hoping you might consider staying with us a bit longer," she said, her voice soft but deliberate. Tom nodded beside her, looking slightly embarrassed, his fork hovering over his plate. I blinked, confused. "What do you mean? I thought you'd be happy to finally have the house to yourselves." Tom cleared his throat, a habit he had when he didn't want to speak first. "Well, sweetheart, the truth is, we're having trouble keeping up with all the bills these days." Linda jumped in, quick as always. "Your father and I aren't getting any younger, and our expenses just keep going up. If you stayed, maybe contributed a little to the household, it would really help us out." I looked at their faces. Linda's hopeful, Tom's sheepish, and felt my stomach twist. These were the people who raised me, who drove me to coding camp when I was 14, who cheered at my graduation even though they didn't understand half of what I studied. I'd been dreaming about my own place for years, picturing a quiet corner where I could code without interruption. But how could I say no? "How much would help?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The relief on their faces was instant, like I'd flipped a switch. "Maybe $1,000 a month?" Tom suggested, tentative, like he was testing the waters. "For bills and groceries?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Just like that, at 23, I became the breadwinner for my parents. My salary went into my savings account mostly untouched, growing steadily each month while I stuck to basics. Cheap coffee, secondhand sneakers. Why waste money on things I didn't need? I figured I'd save up, move out eventually. That was the plan anyway. My sister Brooke was the opposite of me in every way that mattered. At 30, she was 7 years older, married to her college sweetheart Ryan, and mother to their 7-year-old Mason. They lived across town in a fancy rented apartment with hardwood floors and a doorman, acting like they were swimming in cash even though they weren't. Brooke had a part-time job at a boutique, mostly to fight boredom, she said, while Ryan pulled in a decent paycheck, at least until he didn't. Their money vanished as fast as it came. Weekend getaways, dinners at places with unpronounceable names, clothes from Nordstrom's latest drop. One Sunday, she sprawled across Linda and Tom's couch, scrolling her phone while Ryan and Tom watched baseball in the background. Mason's Lego bricks were scattered across the carpet like tiny landmines. "Oh my God, Hazel, are you seriously wearing that shirt again?" Brooke said, not looking up from her screen. I glanced down at my plain, gray tee, the one I'd worn 100 times. "What's wrong with it?" She rolled her eyes, dramatic as ever. "I saw you in it on Instagram last year. Don't you ever buy new clothes? The Nordstrom fall line dropped weeks ago." I don't need new clothes. This one works fine, I said, trying not to let her get under my skin. She sighed, like I'd personally offended her. This is why you're still single. No guy wants a girl who looks like she shops at a thrift store. I bit my tongue instead of pointing out that while my savings account grew, she and Ryan were one missed rent payment from disaster. Sure, Brooke, I muttered. She didn't hear me. She was already texting someone, probably about a sale. That was Brooke. All flash, no substance. When I wasn't at CodeStream, I spent most evenings in my room, hunched over my laptop, working on a side project. It was a home security app, nothing fancy to look at, but I believed it could change how people monitored their homes. It'd integrate with existing cameras, add intelligent alerts for specific movements, and have controls so simple even Tom could use them. The market was full of clunky systems. Mine would be different. I'd code until my eyes burned, losing track of time, chasing that high when a line finally worked. One night, Linda appeared in my doorway, her faded robe tied loose around her waist. "Hazel, it's almost midnight. Why are you still on that computer? You're running up our electricity bill." Her voice had that tired edge, the one she used when she thought I was wasting time. "Sorry, Linda, just finishing something up," I said, not looking away from my screen. The app was close, another week, maybe, and I'd have something to show. She sighed and shuffled off. I heard Tom's voice down the hall, low and grumbly. "All she does is play those stupid games. No wonder she can't find a boyfriend." I didn't bother correcting them. They wouldn't get it. Programming wasn't Candy Crush, and this app wasn't a game. It was my ticket to something bigger, maybe even my way out. But explaining that to them would have been like teaching Mason quantum physics. Pointless. So, I let them believe what they wanted, kept my head down, and typed faster. The glow of my screen was my world those nights, a quiet rebellion against the life they saw for me. Little did I know that app would turn everything upside down. Not because they'd understand it, but because it'd give me power they couldn't touch. The first sign of real trouble hit on a Tuesday evening. I got home from work, my backpack still slung over one shoulder, and found the driveway jammed with cars. The front door was propped open with a cardboard box, and inside, the living room looked like a tornado had hit. Stacked boxes, suitcases, a random lamp with a crooked shade. Brooke was in the middle of it all, directing Linda and Tom like they were her personal moving crew. "What's going on?" I asked, frozen in the doorway. "Are you moving in?" Ryan appeared from the hallway, his usually crisp button-down wrinkled, his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen. Before he could speak, Brooke cut in. "Ryan lost his job. Can you believe how unfairly they treated him? His own friend betrayed him." Her voice was loud, indignant, like she was rehearsing for an audience. "What happened?" I asked, looking at Ryan. He wouldn't meet my eyes, just stared at the floor. "It's complicated," he mumbled. Brooke jumped in defensive. Creative accounting, they called it. He was borrowing company money, but he was going to pay it all back. The director, his so-called friend, found out during an audit and went ballistic. "You mean he was stealing?" I said, careful, testing the word. The room went dead silent. Linda and Tom exchanged uncomfortable glances, like they wished I hadn't asked. "That's a horrible thing to say," Brooke snapped, her face flushing. "His friend asked for the money back and for Ryan to resign. That seems fair considering—" "Fair?" Brooke interrupted, her voice rising. "Real friends don't do that. They understand when you're in a tight spot." I dropped it. Logic wasn't welcome here, not when Brooke was spinning her version of the story. Instead, I watched as she commandeered the house like it was hers, ordering Linda to move a box, telling Tom where to stack suitcases. Ryan just stood there, defeated, while Mason darted around, oblivious. At dinner, Linda announced they'd be staying, just until they get back on their feet. I nodded, silent, already bracing myself for the nightmare I knew was coming. My quiet life, the one I'd carved out with my savings and my app, was about to get a lot louder. Brooke's family moving in didn't just disrupt my quiet life, it demolished it. My orderly days of work and coding crumbled under their chaos, a storm I couldn't escape. Ryan found a new job within 2 weeks, but he complained to anyone who'd listen that it paid half what he'd made before. His voice, echoing through the house like a broken record. Brooke kept her part-time gig at the boutique, working just enough hours to claim she was contributing, though her paycheck barely covered her lattes. Meanwhile, I handed over $1,000 every month, watching it vanish into groceries, utilities, and whatever else they deemed essential. I kept my mouth shut, stabbed my fork into my food, and let the resentment simmer. One night at dinner, Brooke pushed her plate away, her nose wrinkled like she'd smelled something rotten. "This pasta is so bland, Linda. Don't you know how to use seasoning? We used to eat at Via Toscana every Thursday, and their food was amazing." Linda's face fell, her hands fidgeting with her napkin. "I'm sorry, dear. I'll try to do better next time," she said, her voice small. I stared at my perfectly fine pasta, the steam curling up from the plate, and felt my jaw tighten. Brooke didn't cook, didn't clean, didn't even say thank you. She just complained, and somehow Linda took it like it was her fault. Tom stayed silent, chewing slowly, while Ryan nodded along like Brooke was reciting poetry. Mason at least ate without a fuss, his little fork scraping the plate. The dynamic had shifted overnight. Brooke became the center of everyone's attention, her problems ballooning into crises we all had to solve. Her complaints were treated like royal decrees, her whims catered to while I faded into the background, the ATM in the corner who paid the bills. One evening, she barged into my room without knocking, her perfume hitting me before her words did. "I need to borrow $300, she announced, no fake sweetness this time. "Mason needs new sneakers, and we want to take him to the amusement park this weekend. He's been so upset since we moved here." I looked up from my laptop, the code blurring on my screen. "Didn't Ryan just get paid?" I asked. She snapped, "We have other expenses. Are you going to help or not?" I relented, handed over the cash, and watched her flounce out, already planning her next demand. While Brooke turned our house into her personal circus, I finished my security app. Months of late nights, hunched over my keyboard with a cold coffee at my side, had paid off. It was ready, intuitive, smart, a game changer, and I knew it could sell. I booked a meeting with my boss, Greg, at CodeStream, my stomach nodding as I walked into his office. He leaned back in his chair, a guy in his mid-40s with a habit of tapping his pen, and gestured for me to start. I pulled up the app on my tablet, showing him how it detected specific movements, distinguished humans from pets, and sent customized alerts, all wrapped in a clean interface anyone could navigate. Greg's eyes widened as I walked him through it, his pen stilled mid-tap. "The algorithms are seamless, Hazel. Did you develop all this yourself?" he asked, leaning forward now. I nodded, trying not to look too proud, though my chest buzzed with adrenaline. "It's been my side project for a while," I said, keeping my voice steady. He studied me with new respect, the kind I'd never gotten at home. "This could disrupt the home security market completely," he said, his tone serious. "Our company could dominate if we owned this. I'm prepared to offer you $500,000 for full ownership, plus a percentage of future sales. What do you think? $500,000 plus royalties." It was more than I'd dreamed of. A number so big, it didn't feel real. I forced my face to stay neutral, like I negotiated six-figure deals every day. "That sounds fair," I managed, extending my hand. We shook, and I walked out in a daze, the weight of it sinking in as I hit the parking lot. I'd just become wealthy overnight, but as I slid into my car, I made a choice. I wouldn't tell my family. If they knew, that money would disappear into Brooke's shopping sprees, or Linda and Tom's endless enabling. This was my chance, my secret weapon, and I wasn't letting it slip away. The tipping point came a week later. I got home from work, my backpack heavy on my shoulder, and found my belongings dumped in the hallway. Books, clothes, my laptop charger, even the faded stuffed rabbit I'd had since I was 6, all piled up like trash. "What the hell," I muttered, dropping my bag and heading to my bedroom. Except it wasn't mine anymore. Mason sat on my bed, now covered with dinosaur sheets, playing a handheld game, the beeps cutting through the silence. The walls, once lined with my programming certificates, were plastered with Ninja Turtle posters. My desk, the one where I'd built my app, was gone, replaced by a tiny table cluttered with markers and action figures. "Aunt Hazel!" Mason looked up grinning. "Look at my new room. Isn't it cool?" Before I could answer, Brooke appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed casually. "Oh, you're home," she said, not sounding surprised. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice deadly calm, despite the rage bubbling inside. "We moved Mason in here," she said with a shrug, like it was no big deal. "He needs more space for his toys and schoolwork." I took a slow breath. "And where exactly am I supposed to sleep?" Linda materialized behind Brooke, wringing her hands nervously. "Hazel, dear, we thought since you're hardly ever home, always at work or on that computer, you wouldn't mind using the sofa in the living room." I stared at them, my pulse thumping in my ears. "So you moved all my things without asking me?" Brooke smirked, not even hiding it. "We knew you'd make a fuss if we asked, and Ethan really needed the space. His old room was barely bigger than a closet." "Speaking of his old room," I said, "why can't I use that?" They exchanged one of those looks, the kind I'd started noticing more often. "Well," Linda said, hesitating, "we thought Brooke could use a dressing room. You know how many clothes she has, and there's just no space in her and Ryan's room. A dressing room. For Brooke. They'd kicked me out of my childhood bedroom, the one I was essentially paying for with my $1,000 a month, to give my sister a place for her Nordstrom haul." I looked at Brooke's designer sweater, then at my heap of stuff in the hall, and something inside me snapped. But instead of yelling, I shrugged. "You know what? That's fine," I said, my tone even. "I won't be sleeping on the sofa, though, because I'll be sleeping in my own apartment." Brooke laughed, sharp and mocking. "Right, your imaginary apartment? Give it up, Hazel." I turned to her, calm as ever. "I do, actually. I bought it last week. I was going to tell you all this weekend, but it seems you've made the decision easier for me." Their faces froze, and for the first time I felt the power shift. A week of silence stretched into a month before I decided to visit my parents' house. Not out of guilt, but to draw a line I could live with. I pulled into the driveway that Saturday morning, the gravel crunching under my tires, and caught the curtains twitching. They'd been waiting. Linda flung the door open before I reached it, pulling me into a hug so tight I felt her tremble. "Thank goodness you came back," she said, her voice thick with relief. Tom stepped up behind her, his smile tight, uncertain. Brooke and Ryan sat in the living room, Mason sprawled on the rug with his toy truck, and the tension hung heavy, like they'd rehearsed this moment. "I'm not moving back," I said right off, stepping inside to head off any illusions. "I just came to talk." Linda nodded fast, guiding me to the sofa. "We understand, Hazel. We've been thinking a lot, too." I wasn't convinced, but I sat, crossing my arms. Tom cleared his throat, a familiar stall. "We know we messed up. Your room's yours again, whenever you want it. Mason's back in his old spot." Brooke jumped in, too eager. "And I didn't make a dressing room. I can fit my clothes in our bedroom." Their faces were all hope and haste, but I saw through it the same old pattern dressed up new. "You need my money," I said, soft but firm, stripping away the sugar coating. No one denied it, their silence louder than words. Brooke shifted, her nails biting into her palms. "We could work something out," she offered, her tone wheedling. "You could keep your apartment, but maybe still help with expenses. Or we could move into your place, and you take this house." I nearly laughed at the gall. "No, Brooke," I said, my voice steel. "I'm not giving you my apartment or my money." Her cheeks flushed. "That's not fair. You're so selfish. How did you even afford it? Hiding money from us all this time?" I took a slow breath, then let it out. "I sold an app I built. The security program I worked on at night. The one you thought was games. Greg bought it for $500,000, plus royalties. The room went still, a stunned hush. $500,000? Ryan whispered, his eyes wide. Linda paled, gripping the armrest. Why didn't you tell us? She asked, faint. Because I knew what would happen, I said, meeting their gazes one by one. You'd find reasons it should be yours instead of mine. They couldn't argue, and that silence was the truest thing they'd given me in years. 6 months later, I haven't looked back much. Their voices, calling me ungrateful, selfish, heartless, echoed as I left that day, but they don't bite anymore. We barely talk now. They reach out sometimes, but it's always a plea for cash wrapped in fake apologies. Friends tell me they're still packed into that house, grumbling about bills, adding my abandonment to their woes. I don't dwell on it. I'm thriving. My apartment's a haven, with a desk by the window where I tinker with code for fun, not duty. My career's soaring at CodeStream, Greg hinting at bigger things, and the app royalties stack up, quiet and steady in my account. I've started living for me, weekend drives to the coast, a trip to Portland on a whim. I bought new jeans, a cozy sweater, nothing Brooke would glance at twice, but they suit me. There's even a guy, someone from work, grounded like me, who gets my quiet humor. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I was too harsh, cutting them off so clean. Then I remember how they treated me, not as Hazel, but as a wallet to empty, and I know it wasn't selfish. It was survival. Last night, I stood on my balcony, the city buzzing below, and felt the difference. I'm not just getting by, I'm building something, my own life, piece by piece. They'll sort out their mess or they won't, but I'm done carrying it. The freedom's mine now, and it's worth every step I took to claim it.
The invitation lay on my desk, its embossed gold script glinting under the soft halo of my lamp, whispering promises of a night I couldn't escape. Evelyn and Marcus cordially invite you. My sister's wedding, a spectacle, a coronation, a stage where I'd always been relegated to the wings. I traced the edges of the card, feeling the weight of 11 years spent building something no one in my family believed in. They saw me as Morgan Mitchell, the dreamer who traded a law degree for a startup's gamble, destined to crawl back defeated. But here I was, in a sleek Boston office, atop an empire they didn't even know I'd forged, Everlink Dynamics. My creation was worth $3 billion, and I was its invisible architect. As I sat there, the city's skyline shimmering beyond my window, I wondered, would this wedding finally force them to see me? Or would it be another scene in their play of dismissal 11 years ago? I was 24, a law school dropout with a wild idea and a laptop that overheated every hour. Over brunch at a sunlit cafe in Cambridge, Evelyn, my younger sister by 2 years, had laughed, her fork poised over avocado toast. Morgan's lost her mind. She'd told our parents, her voice dripping with pity, she'll be broke by Christmas. Begging for a cubicle, my mother nodded, sipping her mimosa, while my father muttered about wasted potential. I'd left that table, their words burning in my chest, and rented a desk in a co-working space that smelled of burnt coffee, while Evelyn climbed the PR ranks at Lang Tech, dazzling everyone with her corporate headshots and Prada bags. I was coding in a hoodie, pitching to investors who smirked at my youth, and praying my servers wouldn't crash during demos. Everlink Dynamics grew from those sleepless nights, neural interface chips that revolutionized robotics, prototypes that won contracts, beta testers who became evangelists. My family never noticed. They were too busy framing Evelyn's Employee of the Month plaques. I kept my success veiled, operating through shell firms and blind trusts. To the world, I was a mid-level operations manager at a vague tech consultancy, a role I played to avoid their scrutiny. Only my inner circle, my godfather Jackson Rowe, who lent his name as Everlink's figurehead, and a handful of trusted lieutenants knew the truth. I preferred it that way. Anonymity let me build without their judgment, their expectations, their inevitable demands. But the wedding loomed, a collision of my worlds. My mother's voicemails piled up, each one gushing about Evelyn's engagement to Marcus Lang, heir to Lang Group, Boston's fading robotics giant. It's the social event of the year. Morgan, she'd said, her tone implying I'd better not ruin it. I considered declining, but her calls grew insistent, each one a reminder of the family I couldn't quite escape. Miss Mitchell Clara, my assistant, leaned into my office, her voice snapping me back to the present. The quarterly strategy reviews in 10. I nodded, sliding the invitation into a drawer. Clara hesitated, then added, also, Langtech sent the final purchase order for the neural interface chips. They need them by mid-next quarter. It's a $65 million deal. I smiled faintly. The irony sharp enough to cut. Langtech, Marcus's family empire, was banking on those chips to save their sinking ship. But they didn't know the chips were mine. Everlink's proprietary tech. And I held the pen that could sign or shred their future. Thank you. Clara, I said, my voice steady. I'll handle it. As she left, I leaned back, the Boston skyline a glittering reminder of what I'd built. The wedding was this Saturday, a stage set for their arrogance and my reckoning. I'd go, not to play their game, but to rewrite the rules. The morning of Evelyn's wedding dawned crisp. The Boston sky a flawless blue that promised perfection. I stepped out of my Tesla. The Lang estate sprawling before me in Beacon Hill's historic heart. Its manicured lawns and marble columns screaming old money meets new tech. My midnight blue gown hugged my frame. Custom made. Its label discreet, but its craftsmanship unmistakable. I'd chosen it deliberately, understated elegance. A quiet rebellion against the flash I knew awaited inside. The air buzzed with anticipation. Guests in tailored suits and sequined dresses streaming toward the venue. I smoothed my dress, steeling myself for the role I'd been assigned, the overlooked sister, the family's cautionary tale. The ceremony was a spectacle of excess, as if Evelyn and Marcus had raided a vault of legacy wealth and tech millions. Over 500 guests filled the estate's glass terrace, their chatter mingling with a string quartet flown in from Italy. Gold-plated cutlery gleamed on tables draped in silk, and floral arrangements towered like sculptures, requiring scaffolding to stay upright. I stood at the edge, watching my mother air kiss her way through the crowd, her curls immaculate. Morgan, she called, spotting me. Her smile tight as she leaned in for a perfunctory cheek graze. You came, and you look decent. Her eyes flicked over my gown, searching for a flaw. Behind her, my father was deep in conversation with a Lang Tech board member, no doubt angling for a favor. I forced a smile, the weight of their indifference settling like frost. Where should I sit, I asked, glancing at the ornate seating chart. Its calligraphy a map of status. My mother waved a hand. Vague. Oh, we had to rearrange things last minute. Evelyn's guests came in droves. You understand? Her tone was light, but the message cut deep. I understood perfectly. To them, I was still the sister who'd thrown away a legal career to tinker with gadgets. The one who didn't belong at the main table. They didn't know Everlink Dynamics had quietly acquired 3 of Langtech's key suppliers, or that the $65 million chip contract they were chasing was mine to give or take. I nodded, letting her words slide off me, and made my way to the ceremony's last row, a ghost among the glittering crowd. Evelyn was radiant, I'll admit, her gown a cascade of ivory lace, and Marcus glowed with the smug assurance of a man born to inherit. The vows were poetic, the applause thunderous, but I watched it all with detachment, my mind on the reception to come. When it began, I scanned the ballroom for my name card, weaving through tables laden with crystal and orchids. Nothing, looking for something. Evelyn's voice cut through the hum, syrupy and sharp. She'd changed into a sleeker dress, her perfection curated for the spotlight. My seat, I said, keeping my tone even. Her smile tightened. A predator's gleam. Oh, didn't they tell you? We had to reserve the main tables for more prominent guests, but the kitchen set something up near the staff lounge. Very cozy. Laughter rippled from nearby tables. A cruel chorus. Marcus sauntered over, his tuxedo pristine, his grin insufferable. Come on, Morgan, don't cause a scene. You've always been good at staying in your lane. His words landed like a slap, echoing the years of their dismissal every holiday where I was cropped from photos, every brunch where my dreams were mocked. I met his gaze, My composure a shield forged in a decade of their underestimation. Noted, I said, my voice cool. But inside, a fire roared. 11 years of being their afterthought burned behind my calm. I slipped my hand into my clutch, fingers brushing my phone. The stage was set. Their arrogance, the perfect prelude to my move. I turned toward the kitchen. Not because I accepted their place for me, but because I knew the real power wasn't at their gilded tables, it was in the empire I'd built, waiting for the moment to strike. The kitchen door loomed ahead, its utilitarian steel a stark contrast to the ballroom's gilded opulence. But I paused, my heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The laughter from Evelyn and Marcus's taunt still echoed, a cruel melody that stirred a decade of buried slights. My fingers closed around my phone, its cool glass grounding me. This wasn't just about a seat. It was about every moment they'd written me off, every sneer that dismissed my ambition. I'd built Everlink Dynamics from a folding table in a Cambridge garage. And now, with one call, I could unravel their world. My pulse steadied. A predator's calm. It was time to stop playing their invisible guest. I dialed, my voice low but firm. Jack, it's me. Terminate the Lang contract. All of it. Effective immediately. On the other end, my godfather's voice crackled with surprise, but didn't question he knew better. As I hung up, a shatter pierced the ballroom's hum. Marcus's champagne flute lay in fragments at his feet, his face a mask of disbelief. Evelyn's smile froze, her eyes darting to me, then to the guests who'd fallen silent. The air thickened, chandeliers casting long shadows that seemed to lean toward me. I held up my phone, the Everlink Dynamics logo glowing on the screen like a verdict. The $65 million neural chip deal, I said, my voice cutting through the hush. The one Lang Tech's been banking on to save this quarter, it's mine, Everlink's. And I just canceled it. Gasps rippled through the crowd, forks clattering against plates. Marcus took a step forward, his jaw tight. "What are you doing?" he hissed, his bravado fraying. I didn't flinch. My gaze locked on his. What I should have done years ago reminding you who holds the cards. Evelyn's laugh was brittle, a desperate attempt to reclaim control. "You're bluffing. Everlink's a billion-dollar firm. You're just... You..." Her words hung, fragile, and I let them linger, savoring the moment. "Am I?" I said, tilting my head. "Everlink Dynamics is my company. I'm its CEO, not some operations drone. Those chips. My design. That contract? My decision." The ballroom seemed to contract. Guests leaning forward, phones discreetly recording, Marcus's face drained of color, his hands twitching as if searching for something to grip. "That's impossible," he stammered. "Jackson Rowe owns Everlink. Everyone knows that." I smiled, sharp and cold. "Jackson's my godfather. He fronted the company while I built it from the shadows. Call him if you'd like. He'll confirm it." Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth, her curated perfection cracking. The weight of my truth settled over the room, heavy as the floral arrangements wilting under the chandeliers. I wasn't just the sister they'd banished to the kitchen, I was the architect of their downfall. And they'd invited me to their stage. I turned, my gown whispering against the floor, ready to leave them to their unraveling. But Marcus's voice, raw with panic, "Stop me. You can't do this. My father's entire launch depends on those chips." I glanced back, my expression serene. "I know. And I also know about Lang Tech's leveraged loans, the investor pullback, and the AR rollout that bled millions. Your empire's crumbling? Marcus. And you thought you could mock me while begging for my tech." The silence was deafening, the crowd's eyes darting between us like spectators at a duel. I'd drawn first blood, but the real fight was just beginning, and I was ready to finish it. The ballroom's hush shattered as Mr. Lang strode forward, his polished shoes clicking like a metronome on the marble. His face, usually a mask of corporate composure, was flushed, his bow tie askew. "What's this about our contract?" he demanded, his voice booming. "Marcus, why is your sister-in-law discussing our business?" I turned to him, extending my hand with a smile that felt like a blade. "Mr. Lang, I'm Morgan Mitchell, CEO of Everlink Dynamics. You might know me better as LM Strategic Holdings. The firm that's been quietly buying up your suppliers. His eyes widened. A man struck by a truth he hadn't seen coming. Your LM Holdings. He sputtered. The one controlling our vendors. Guilty. I replied, my tone light but lethal. Your due diligence team missed a few details. No hard feelings. Evelyn's voice cut in. Venomous. You're lying. This is some pathetic stunt to ruin my day. Her mascara smudged. A stark contrast to her earlier polish. I met her gaze. Unflinching. Ruin your day. I'm just correcting the seating chart. You placed me in the kitchen. Evelyn. But I've been running the table all along. I gestured to the crowd. Their phones now openly recording. Everlink doesn't just supply your chips. We own your debt. Your supply chain. And soon, your company. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing my arm. His grip bruising. Fix this. He growled. Whatever game you're playing, undo it. I looked down at his hand, then back at him. My voice ice. Like when I asked you for a loan to start Everlink. When you laughed and told me to get a real job, that's Marcus. He recoiled, his hand dropping. I pressed on. My words deliberate. Lang Tech's 3 months from insolvency without my chips. And you, Marcus, have been embezzling from your division to cover gambling losses. I know because Everlink audits your books. Evelyn spun toward him, her dress swishing like a storm. You stole from my father. She shrieked, her voice echoing off the crystal chandeliers. Mr. Lang's face darkened to crimson, sweat beading at his brow. Security. He barked, panic rising. Remove her. I raised a hand. My calm unshaken. I wouldn't. Everlink holds a significant portion of your debt. Call it in. And Lang Tech collapses by Monday. Your choice. The security team froze, their eyes flicking between us. The room's power had shifted. No longer at the head table, but in my steady hands. My mother pushed through the crowd, her face flushed with indignation. Morgan, stop this. You're humiliating your sister. I turned to her, my phone still in hand. Humiliating. Like when you cropped me from every holiday photo because I didn't wear Burberry. Or when you said I was throwing my life away, I held up the screen. Want the Q2 earnings report or the acquisition contracts? I have both. Her lips parted, but no words came. The crowd murmured. Guests typing Everlink dynamics into their phones. Piecing together the truth. Marcus's bravado crumbled. His voice a whisper. Morgan, please, not here. We can work something out aboard seat. A partnership? I laughed. The sound sharp enough to cut glass. By next week, I'll own a controlling interest in Lang Tech. Your negligence, your father's mismanagement, it handed me your company. The chip deal was just the handshake. Evelyn sank into a chair, her gown pooling like defeated silk. This can't be real. She whispered, not today. I echoed her earlier cruelty. My voice soft but piercing. The kitchen staff has a lovely table. Evelyn, perfect for your new place in the hierarchy? Mr. Lang fumbled with his tie, his empire unraveling before the guests he'd meant to impress. The wedding, once a display of status, was now a spectacle of collapse, and I stood at its center, the architect of their reckoning, ready to walk away with everything they'd undervalued. The ballroom's chaos faded behind me as I stepped into the cool Boston night, my Tesla waiting like a silent ally at the curb. Mike, my driver and head of security, opened the door, his eyes catching the uproar spilling through the estate's windows. Everything okay? Miss Mitchell? He asked, his voice steady. I glanced back at the silhouettes of Evelyn sobbing, Mr. Lang roaring, and my mother clutching her pearls, all framed by the glow of chandeliers. Everything's perfect. Mike, I said, sliding into the seat. Let's go. We've got a company to finalize. As we pulled away, the Lang estate shrank in the rear view, a monument to hubris crumbling under the weight of truth. I'd dismantled their facade, but the real work building, always building, lay ahead. By morning, the fallout was viral. Lang Tech's stock nosedived. Headlines screaming of debt crises and Marcus's embezzlement. Social media buzzed with clips of the wedding's collapse. My words replayed in grainy videos. I'll own controlling interest in Lang Tech. Evelyn, unwilling to tether herself to a sinking legacy, filed for annulment within days. Her dream wedding reduced to a footnote in Boston's gossip mills. My parents' voicemails flooded my inbox, a crescendo of rage morphing into pleas for forgiveness. I let them pile up, unanswered. My focus on Everlink Dynamics. We absorbed Langtech's key assets, stripping the excess and cutting the rot. Most employees stayed, grateful for stability. Marcus's department was the first to go. His office cleared out before the week's end. 3 months later, I sat in my corner office. Boston Harbor's waves glinting beyond the glass. Everlink's quarterly reports showed a 24% surge. Our neural chips now powering industries that Langtech could only dream of. A buzz from my intercom broke my focus. Ms. Mitchell. There's a visitor. Clara said. No appointment. I sighed, expecting another reporter chasing the Lang story. Send them in. The door opened, and a wave of Chanel perfume drifted through. Familiar yet out of place. My mother stood there, her designer handbag clutched like a shield, her face etched with lines I hadn't noticed before. The receptionist didn't recognize me. She said, her voice small. I had to show ID. I leaned back, meeting her gaze. Security's tight since the acquisition. We've had unexpected guests. She sat uninvited, her posture rigid. Your father and we've been thinking about how we treated you, what we failed to see. Her words trembled, a crack in her polished veneer. I folded my hands, my tone flat. And what did you see? A daughter who didn't fit your mold? Or a favor you need now that the country club's whispering? She flinched, her fingers tightening on her bag. We were wrong, she whispered. We thought success was Evelyn's polish, Marcus's charm. But you built something real. I raised an eyebrow, real enough to eclipse Langtech and every subsidiary. But would you have cared when I was sleeping in my car to save on rent? She looked away, her silence an answer. No, she admitted, and that shame is ours. I pressed a button on my desk. Clara, bring the package for Mrs. Mitchell. Moments later, Clara entered, placing a thick envelope before me. I slid it to my mother. What's this? She asked, her fingers hesitant. A chance. I said, Everlink's small business initiative leases mentors, resources. If you want to build something, earn it. No shortcuts. No family strings. She stared at the documents, then at me, her eyes glistening. You'd offer this after everything I stood, gazing at the harbor. I'm not offering forgiveness. I'm offering a path, merit, not mercy. She rose, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. Thank you, she said, her voice breaking, for the clarity. As she reached the door, I added, that kitchen table at the wedding, it showed me who you all were. The best view is from the edges. She nodded, understanding flickering in her gaze, and left. I turned back to my work. Everlink's next contract's waiting. From my office, Boston's skyline stretches like a canvas of possibility, each light a testament to what grit can build. I keep a battered folding table in the corner, a relic from my garage days when no one believed in me. For years, I was invisible, my family's laughter louder than my victories. They measured worth in logos and lunch invitations, but I measured it in code, in prototypes, in the quiet moments when a dream became real. That kitchen table at Evelyn's wedding wasn't a punishment. It was a revelation, a seat where I saw their truth and claimed my own. I'm sharing this not for pity, but for you, the ones grinding in silence. Unseen, thank you for seeing me. Your story matters. In the comments, tell me about your kitchen table moments when you were underestimated, dismissed, or told you weren't enough. Share the wins you built in the shadows, the dreams you refused to abandon. If you've ever worked twice as hard just to be noticed, hit that like button. Subscribe if you know success doesn't need a spotlight, only substance. Pass this to someone building quietly, someone who needs a spark to keep going. The people who matter will see your value when it counts. And those who don't, they'll be scrambling for a seat at the table you've already set. Don't chase their approval. Chase what lasts impact. Integrity. The empire only you can build. That old table in my office reminds me greatness starts where no one's looking. So keep going. Keep creating. Keep proving them wrong by proving yourself right. The kitchen table isn't just where they seat you, it's where you rewrite the rules. As I sit in my office, the Boston Harbor's gentle waves reflecting the dawn's first light, I trace the grain of that old folding table from my garage days. It scars a map of my journey. The wedding. Evelyn's glittering stage turned crucible taught me a lesson sharper than any boardroom victory. True strength isn't in proving others wrong, but in trusting yourself when no one else does. I'd spent years fueled by my family's dismissal, their laughter a goad that drove me to build Everlink Dynamics into a $2, $3 billion empire. Each sleepless night, each investor's smirk, each prototype failure was a brick in my fortress. But the wedding revealed a truth I hadn't faced. I'd let their judgment define my worth, my success a weapon to wield against their scorn. When I terminated Langtech's $65 million contract, it wasn't just about reclaiming power, it was about silencing the echo of their doubts. Yet, as I watched Marcus crumble and Evelyn's facade crack, I felt no triumph. Only clarity, their validation. The thing I'd chased in shadows was hollow, offering my mother that envelope, a chance to build on merit. Wasn't generosity, it was my liberation. I didn't need their pride to stand tall. I needed my own. The kitchen table, where they thought they'd diminished me, became my altar of self-belief. It taught me to measure success not in their gasps or their regret, but in the quiet certainty of my path. Every line of code I wrote, every deal I closed, every life Everlink's tech touched, that was my truth, unshaken by their blindness. Now, I build not to prove, but to create, to innovate, to leave a mark that outlasts their fleeting judgments. The lesson isn't revenge or redemption, it's resilience, the kind that blooms in solitude, in the edges, in the places they'll never look. So, I keep that table, not as a trophy, but as a reminder the only approval that matters is the one I give myself, forged in the fire of my conviction.